Okay, so welcome tonight, mid-January 2022. My name is Jill Davey, and we're going to have a short introduction to the theme tonight, short maybe so, and a practice at least 20 minutes. We'll see how it feels. Might be 25. The practice and the theme, the teachings tonight are partially inspired by a few different sources. So one of them was CBC radio podcast playlist, they call it, and they reference different podcasts and introduce them. And I think, was it today or yesterday that yeah, I think they replayed it, but I heard a short introduction of someone named Guy Winch. He's a psychologist, an author, and a speaker, and did a TED Talk. And so they were mostly referencing his TED Talk, which I've put into the chat here in the Zoom, and also I'll put it down below in the YouTube link, so you can check that out if you want. And in that podcast, he's talking about a personal experience that he had in his practice as a psychologist of burnout, really. And he was surprised himself with his reactivity to somebody he was stuck in an elevator with. And the person was like having a panic attack and pressing all the buttons and saying, "This is my worst nightmare." And kind of under his breath, this Guy Winch said, this is my worst nightmare, meaning this guy's reaction. And then he was like, oh, wow, he felt really bad, like that he wasn't responding in a compassionate way that he knew he had the capacity to do. And so this really started his investigation about what was happening for him and his burnout, as he calls it. And so that's kind of where he's starting the conversation from. And so he refers to many studies that are done and also his personal experience about ruminating. And ruminating, if you're not familiar with that word or English as a second language, it might be unfamiliar. So ruminating is what cows do and other animals that are called ruminants, and they chew something, they're eating something, and then they actually regurgitate it and chew it some more and swallow it. So to me, that's a motivating image to think of for myself if I'm ruminating. Like, how much am I like regurgitating something, chewing on it again, eating it again, bring it up again in my mind, ruminating thoughts where going over something over and over again, and then up it comes again and go over it and over it again. Okay, and then it comes up, and so I like calling it ruminating. It's kind of gruesome for me anyways. I think it's kind of gross, and but it's motivating because it's kind of like, yeah, I don't really want to do that with my food or with my mind. And in Pali language, which is the language the teachings from the Buddha were first written down in, as far as we know, there's a very similar word which is called papañca. I also put that in the chat here, and I'll put it down below on the YouTube recording. And papañca is a lot like ruminating. So for those that don't have access to the chat, it's papañca, and there's one of those wave things over the N. I know it has a proper name. So papañca is proliferation of mind. It's the tendency to, it can also include like falsification, where we embellish things, or it gets a little bit distorted or very distorted, elaborated, exaggerated, escalated. What are some of the other terms here? I'm just looking and the definition of it here. And it's also really fueled by, the root of it is around self, perpetuating thoughts of self, how I want to be, how I want to be seen, how I want things to go. All of that is at the root of it. And so in this TED Talk, but also 2,600 years ago in the time of the Buddha realized this and taught us this, that this kind of thinking, habitual, ruminating, papañca, proliferating thoughts, now the science shows us that this actually activates the stress response within our nervous system. In brief, stress response affects our sleep, like detrimentally, of course, elevates heart rate, elevates blood pressure, increases our cravings for whatever substance, soothes the savage beast. It affects our moods, become more erratic and reactive. It affects our ability to think clearly in a negative way. Yeah, so there's a whole host of, and physiologically it affects our digestion and elimination, reproduction systems. It's huge. So these habits of mind are something to put a lot of attention to, and to put a good amount of effort into retraining this, untraining and retraining this habit of mind. And when the ruminating thoughts cause way more stress than the actual event. The actual event, while it's happening, we're kind of just dealing with what's happening and responding to it in the moment, and it doesn't elicit as much of a stress response as the thought grooves that keep growing and grinding. They have a way more effect on our heart, body, mind. And when we look at them, we can see that we're not figuring anything out. We're not learning anything new. We're not solving it. We're not changing it. Usually with ruminating thoughts, we're just going over it again and again. I wish I had. Why didn't they? When is it going to, etc. In the TED Talk, he's a bit more specific. He's talking about work-life balance and how to end your work day, and how this is in the CBC thing. It's a bit more about how this is even exacerbated in this time of the pandemic and people not going to work and coming home and having that transition time where you're commuting and you're like processing the day, and you come in the door, you're in your home and you change your clothes, and it's like a different environment, and it's a little easier to make that transition. And how it's exacerbated now because we're just like working in our pajamas on the couch all day, and there isn't that transition time to process what does need reflection, because that's important. It's not like we want to turn the mind off and not be able to reflect on things and plan and take action. That, of course, is so important, but we want to be able to decide when we're doing that. So the practice tonight is reflect, drop, and replace. RDR. RDR. The pirate practice, RDR. Reflect on it and then drop it and replace it. So it's important. I've previously, some of you have heard me talk about designated worry time, where you set aside a time to like think constructively about it, not just like going over, ruminating, but to try to transform the thoughts into actions. And this is skillful use of the time. It's helpful to designate a time to apply your mind to it. See what can actually be done, what responses are needed. And then the second part of it, dropping it, is coming from this book. I forgot to pop it into the chat, but I'll do after the recording. It's called How to Be Sick. Not a very appealing title, but the subtitle I like is called A Buddhist-Inspired Guide for the Chronically Ill and Their Caregivers. This is from Tony Bernhard. How to Be Sick, a Buddhist-inspired guide for the chronically ill and their caregivers. And the author has a chronic long-time illness since 2001, and then other health challenges that arose as well. And in here, she talks about this drop it practice, she calls it. And we're going to try that on tonight. And this is where we actually intentionally, this is like that, like the reflect time, like you actually take ourselves intentionally out of the present moment, even though we're thinking about past in the present moment. But anyways, we're going to reflect on something that has happened, that feels sticky, that feels unresolved, that is still a little bit charged, and let ourselves just feel the effects of it, think about it for a little bit. We're not trying to problem solve it, but just bring it to mind and then intentionally drop it. So we say to ourselves, drop it. It's like training a puppy, right? Bring it over, drop it, drop it. Well, you want me to drop it. Often we need to replace it with a little treat or with a pat or some reward to get them to drop it. And so then, it's like telling ourselves, let it go, let it go. Saying that is so annoying. Let it go. If I could let it go, I would. What we need to do is replace the thoughts. And this is actually from the middle path, the Eightfold Path that the Buddha awoke to, of the way to the ending of stress, suffering. Part of it is right effort, wise effort. And one of the wise efforts is to actually skillfully, intentionally replace the thoughts, to not bypassing, not suppressing, although that is also one of the efforts, but to see, like, right now, this is just ruminating, chewed this one over already. This isn't helpful right now. I'm going to designate a time to reflect on it. And right now I need to drop it So then we have to attune to something else to replace the thoughts. So we're going to attend to the body, which is in the present moment always. Thank you very much, body. And the sense doors. So depends on what stands out for you. It could be seeing, smelling, tasting, touch, breath, which is also touch, sensations of ground. So this takes determination. There's a certain amount of energy, intention, determination is called adhitthana in Pali. And it requires, like, because the habit of the mind is so strong that it takes some determination and energy, intention to, I'm really going to pay attention for these next few minutes to this anchor, whatever anchor you choose. Breath, perhaps. I really need to brighten it up, like turn the flashlight, widen it, or focus the light on that anchor that you choose. I think that's all I want to say. Yep. So let's try it. This is our opportunity to practice it in the laboratory of our formal meditation practice so that we can apply it in our daily lives, because that's what it's all about. That's what practice is about. How then does it help me in my daily life? All right. So adjust your posture for what will be supportive for you for ease and wakefulness. Some folks depending what time zone you're in, like to practice standing up. Some, if you're having a lot of pain, might need to practice laying down. These are some of the postures of meditation. If you're sitting, you might like to put something behind your back so there's some uprightness. If you're leaning back into a really soft thing at this time of day, it can lead to a lot of sleepiness for some people. Right. So as we're just settling into our posture, we're just feeling into what your system needs to settle into some stillness. Do you need some movements of your neck or shoulders? Do you need any other supports? Are you warm? Do you want to dim your lights or turn away from your screen? Once you bring your supports to your body, then find the posture for your eyes that is most supportive for you. Some of us practice with our eyes downcast and just slightly open. Some of us practice with eyes resting all the way closed. And some might find it helpful to keep the eyes resting on something in your space that is peaceful or beautiful to look on. And so one of those three postures for your eyes, rather than kind of looking around or looking for entertainment with the eyes, just let them come to rest in some way. As the eyes come to rest, see if some sensation of rest can come across the face, the muscles of the face. If there's any holding in the area of the forehead or the jaw that feels like it's not needed right now, could it soften a little bit? So we let go of outward expression, trying to look or be or please anyone else. Just let the muscles of the face drape. As the face begins to relax a little bit, feeling into the muscles of the sides and back of the neck, and inviting length as the shoulder bones drop down. The weight of the shoulders sliding down towards the elbows, which are underneath the shoulders, and then all the way into resting hands. Taking whatever sighing or deeper breaths feel helpful to you, bringing some movement or softening or ease to the area of the chest and the belly. So that as the muscles of the whole body relax a little bit, we begin to feel more presence and weightedness and groundedness through the pelvis, or we're laying down through the back body. Through the legs and feet. Resting into whatever support is here for you now. And then before we move into this reflect, drop, and replace practice tonight, we'll choose an anchor that feels supportive for you. So one anchor may be just a touch of where your hands are resting right now. Let's take a few moments to just feel into the hands, however they are. We can feel temperature and texture, pressure, perhaps tingling or pulse. You can feel the hardness of bones, the softness of flesh. Just feeling hands now for a few moments. And now you can choose to stay with just feeling your hands as your anchor, or you could check out, if it feels helpful to you, the sensation of breathing that's already happening. For some, it might be helpful to take a few slightly deeper breaths to feel sensations of breath. Just notice where you feel that sensation most easily. Maybe in the belly or the chest or at the nostrils. And for some folks, at different times, using the breath as an anchor is not helpful. It can create more tension. And so you might choose to come back to the hands as your anchor. Either one is mindfulness of body, either one is impermanent and conditioned. They're both excellent anchors. So just choose one now for the rest of this practice. And then whichever one you've chosen, hands or breath, just turn up the brightness a little more. Really pay attention to the full sensation that's there. Okay, so now we're going to intentionally invite in some recollection, something from the past that feels a little bit sticky. There may be regret or sadness or self-blame, something that just feels a little bit unresolved or sticky for you. It is probably wise not to choose the most upsetting thing you can find. Just be gentle. It may be something that's happened with someone else, or that something that someone else did that has been bothering you or sticky, that you're ruminating about. And then just for a few moments here, we're going to let ourselves just stay with it. Let some thoughts flow through. Maybe something, some way that you haven't treated yourself well or treated someone else well. And after these few moments of recalling this, see if you've picked up any tension in your habitual muscles of tension. A little bit different for each of us. Is the breath being held? Is the tongue pressing? Are the shoulders hiking up? Okay, and now we're going to drop it. Just telling yourself, drop it, drop it. Just like dropping heavy bags that you're holding in both arms, just drop them. And then to do this, we'll help ourselves by replacing. So we're going to pay attention now to our anchor, replacing the attention with the present moment. Turn up the light on your anchor, your hands or your breath. And for these next few minutes of silence, really turn up the determination to pay attention to your anchor for a few minutes here. And feel the relief of it. And if the mind wants to slide back into that habit, ruminating again, just say, not right now, and return to your anchor. And then we have one more practice wave here, thought experiment. Now we're going to intentionally pick up a futuring thought. And this is also another place we often ruminate of something that we are projecting into the future, worried about, stressed about, agitated. It could be personal, it could be something about the world, about others. So again, maybe not choosing the worst case scenario. Knowing that it's just for a few moments, we're going to pick up these thoughts and let them run for a little while. And then it might help you to take a deeper breath. And with your exhale, we drop it. Drop it. Let it go. Drop the weight. And then replace skillfully with intention. We replace by paying attention to the present moment. Return to your anchor of hands or breath. Turn up the light and the attention to that anchor. And really rest. Feel the refuge of that anchor. The relief. I'm just going to pay attention to this for these next few minutes. This takes energy, determination. Now, in these last 5 minutes of the practice, is when you're really going to create a new mind habit. This is when it gets a little harder. You may be getting bored or tired or restless or achy. And the mind will want to slip into its habit. So see if you can begin again as if you're just starting your practice right now. In a moment, I'll ring the bell 3 times. Thank you if you've joined us on the YouTube recording, and hope to practice with you again. And check the links down below to the book and the TED Talk that I referenced.